Welcome to Living Chronic, the podcast that explores the realities of living with chronic illness and disability while redefining how we thrive in our personal and professional lives. I'm your host, Brandy Schantz, a disabled veteran and chronic illness warrior, here to discuss the challenges, triumphs, and untapped potential of life with a chronic condition. Before we dive in, please take a minute to hit the subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening. Now, let's change the way we think about disability together. Hi, this is Brandy Schantz, and you're listening to Living Chronic. Today I'm here with Njideka Olatunde, who is an expert on all sorts of healing focuses that are not traditional medicine. We all know how much I love this. Reflexology is her real expertise. You know, anything that gives me something natural. People know I love it because I'm trying my best to stay off medications when possible. So I'm really excited for this particular interview. Welcome. Thank you so much for coming on Living Chronic.
Thank you, Brandy, for having me.
So you have this really great focus on reflexology. And I know many people have no idea what that even is. So tell me a little bit about that. What is reflexology?
Okay, reflexology is the art and science of working specific reflex and nerve ending points on your hands, your feet, and your ears to relax, relieve stress and pain, improve circulation, and reduce any type of mental, emotional, and physical problems that you may have via the nerve endings in your hands and feet.
So nerve endings are something that I've more recently learned about when I was diagnosed with a nervous system disease. And I think the average person knows what a nerve is. We know we have a nervous system, but we don't really put a lot of focus on it. And often it's not until, like myself, you find yourself with this disease. I have dysautonomia. I also have small fiber neuropathy, and it brought a new attention for me. So why are these nerves so important in this kind of therapy?
That's an excellent question. And the reason why it's an excellent question is because when we look at our body is made up of systems. And one of the most important systems in the body is the nervous system. And the reason why I say that is because the nerve endings, they run straight through your body. Specifically, if you look at a chart of the anatomy, you'll see how the nerve endings, they begin in your head and run through your body, ending in your hands and feet. Now, the function of the nerve endings is it's connected by sending messages, which we call energy, to the brain, which is the communication center of the body. So it's the nerve endings and the brains that help the body communicate from cell to cell, nerve to nerve, muscle to muscle, throughout the body, organ to organ. That's the purpose of the nervous system, is to deliver the messages. And so when we use reflexology, we are reflecting or reflexing the nerve endings to open up the channels, the lines of communication between the brain and the organs and the systems inside the body.
You know what's so interesting, shocking, unbelievable sometimes for many of us who have this disease, dysautonomia, and it is on the rise, how much your nervous system affects everything in your body. When I went to the doctor, I remember saying, I don't know what it is, but I feel like I must be at a point where I'm dying because everything was wrong. I couldn't pronounce words. I couldn't remember words. My brain was oatmeal. I had pain in my chest as if I was having a heart attack, but I went to an ER twice, no heart attack. I was dealing with terrible acid reflux, or just reflux, really. I called it acid because I thought that's what it was, and it wasn't. It was just a reflux. I was also dealing with some severe GI issues that we had to rush me in, thinking I might have had colon cancer as a Crohn's patient. But I had all these terrible GI symptoms. I had recurrent UTIs. I had muscle pain. I couldn't exercise. I mean, there was nothing on me that was not broken in some way. And I just thought, my goodness, something has ravaged my body so badly that I have disease everywhere. And after seeing multiple specialists, having the best colonoscopy of my whole entire life, actually,
Yes.
not seeing any acid damage in my esophagus, not finding anything wrong with my bladder, we finally realized once I went to a neurologist that it was my autonomic nervous system. And that's really how powerful your nervous system is. Everything you do, breathing. I have to concentrate on breathing sometimes. Why? Your autonomic nervous system does that also. So I don't think that most of us even think about how powerful our nervous system is. And it isn't until something goes wrong that you think, oh my gosh, that does everything. And that's what plays into reflexology.
And I think in response, the example that you gave in terms of sharing your health experience as it relates to the nervous system, to help your listeners understand, think about your house and the electricity. If all of a sudden the electricity goes out in your house, you can either flip the flip the switch, which is the circuit breaker,
Right.
and the electricity will come back on. Think about that example as we talk about the nerve endings and what happens if you flip the circuit breaker and all of a sudden electricity still doesn't come back on. You have to call an electrician. And when the electrician comes, they're going to say, okay, there's a shortage in a wiring. The wiring is off. What you described was showing a shortage in the nerve endings, which was off. It's the same concept. And so when we're doing reflexology, we're like the electrician that's coming in to find where that shortage is in the nerve ending so that we can connect it or we can reflex it. And by reflexing it, what you're doing is you're now working with the nerve endings and the brain so that now we can get the communication system operating, because that's what's happening. There's a shortage, and when there's a shortage, the brain couldn't communicate through the nerve endings. Okay, we need to be going to this area here because this area is in stress, and then all of a sudden another area is off where we need. It's all out. So like we have to think of the nerve endings as the electricity in our body. It's the wiring. The nerve endings are the wiring to the electric currents that operate and helps our body to operate and function via communicating to the brain. And so if we look at it from that perspective, we can now give value to the nervous system and what it does. And in addition to that, I always ask my students when I'm doing my training, I do a little exercise. We talk, which is the most important organ and which is the most important system. And most of the time, we never think about the nervous system.
Right.
But the nervous system is your communication center. And the most important organ is your colon because that's your eliminating system. So the two of them, that organ and that system, play a vital role into the overall optimum health of your body.
Absolutely. You know, my neurologist said to me, because he was asking me questions about my overall health, my life, my childhood, where I've lived, just trying to, piece together what's wrong with me. And of course, I have Crohn's disease. And he said, the gut is the little brain.
Yes.
And he's right. We have to work on having a healthy brain and a healthy gut to have a healthy body. And in order to have healthy gut and a healthy brain, we have to have a healthy nervous system.
Yes.
And
Yes.
we don't always make those connections, but they're very much real.
Exactly. And I think when we talk about the body, most of us take it for granted. I mean, it's just we're in a body, and
Yes.
that's how we operate. But if you think about it, I always share with my patients/clients that you must understand. I know that you know about your automobile, But if you understand your automobile is designed exactly, it's a replica of your body. It has
Mhm.
the same operational functions. So when you purchase your automobile and they tell you it needs maintenance XXX, and you make sure that your
Mhm.
automobile has the maintenance that's
You want it to
required.
last a long time.
And your body needs the same thing. We
Absolutely.
and what bothers me about that is because when you think about it, many years ago, we used to talk about prevention. And
Yes.
prevention was about maintenance. Now
Yes.
it's a word that's just a word. We don't even know what that is. But
Yep.
if you think about prevention, it would help alleviate a lot of the health issues that we are
So
facing
much.
today because it's all based on preventive approaches to health and wellness.
Absolutely. It's interesting. I remember hearing throughout my life, after 40, everything just goes. Everything just goes. It just goes. And I realized many years later, well after I was 40, particularly because I have a chronic illness, but also because, you start getting older, you start going to high school reunions, college reunions, all these people you haven't seen in 20, 30, 40 years. And everybody looks very different. We did not age the same. And a lot of it has something to do with what you did for maintenance and prevention leading up. So I always tell young people it's not that everything goes after 40, it's that there was an accumulation of not maintaining your body.
Yes.
And then your body said, well, that's enough. I'm breaking now.
Yes.
And that's why we see now so many people in their 30s even getting diseases that used to be an
Yes.
over 40 disease
You're right.
because you're too much sugar's going into the body. You're not exercising enough. All these things, they just keep adding up. You don't just suddenly get type 2 diabetes in a day. You just don't suddenly wake up one morning 43 and say, whoops, well, there it is. Now I have high cholesterol. That's 43 years of not eating right. So when
And
you think about it that way, you realize you have a lot of control as to how you're going to age within that body.
you've just defined our health care crisis. How
Yes.
you just said that's what our crisis is all about. And the thing now, because everything is so fast, see,
Yes.
that's the difference. It's not like, as we were growing up, it was like a moderate or either it was a slow pace or it
Oh,
was a
yes.
moderate pace. Now everything is like, hyper
Yes.
intensive and fast, which means that for the generations coming up, you don't actually have a lot of time
Yep.
because everything is the quick fix and instant. And the one thing that's needed is you need to take time to process everything. I
Mm-hmm.
always say it's time to now reconnect with our bodies
Yes.
mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. You need to do a reconnection. You need to take time to what we call reset. And when you
Mm-hmm.
start resetting, you can start using that as your first step to health care prevention. I'm resetting my body, which means I'm taking time to look at what I did yesterday. Can I still do it today? Will it be beneficial for me tomorrow? That can be your first step to
Yep.
looking at preventive approaches to alleviating a lot of the things that's defined as illnesses that you do
Yes.
not have to have.
That's right.
Because most illnesses are inflicted because of our lifestyles.
And what's interesting? And people, and some of it is, sure, people are very quick to jump on things and say, sounds hokey. Sounds hokey. Well, you know what? We're all defined by our experiences in life in many ways. And my experience in life includes a very severe reaction to a medication I was on.
Yes.
So that's my viewpoint. I understand that not all medications are going to do that to me. I understand that medications are often necessary. My Crohn's is severe. I can't control it without a medication. Believe me, I've tried. But I also am very suspicious of medications for a good reason. And one of the many things I've learned since that reaction is I've been going to see many neurologists. Neurologists all have a very similar couple of things they say to people. Now, there's some differences here and there in how they approach what they think is happening to you, but there are two things that are very, very common among every neurologist I've seen. The first one is stop drinking alcohol. We've heard a lot about that recently in the news. Every single one of them have asked me, do you drink? Stop drinking. It does kill your nerves. It's not good for your body overall. I haven't met a neurologist yet who is particularly positive about alcohol. The second thing they always say is come off as many medications as you can. If you don't have to have it, get off it. And you know why? It was also a neurologist, incidentally,
Yes.
who diagnosed my reaction to my Humira. Other doctors were like, I don't know what's happening to you. I don't know. The very first neurologist I saw within, I think, 60 seconds of looking at my chart, he looks up and says, why are you on Humira? I think you're having a reaction. And I thought, my goodness, I've been to how many doctors, nurse practitioners, physician's assistants, countless,
See?
over 19 months. That was the first time. The neurologist was the one who saw it. Why he gets all these people? Because a lot of these medications do cause neurologic issues. So when I finally got all of my diagnosis, really in general in medicine, they say, well, it can't be cured. And the only thing we got for you, we got some gabapentin, we got some Cymbalta. And me, I'm like, gabapentin, Cymbalta, no thank you. I don't want any more medications. I'm on enough. That's number one. Number two, both those medications pretty much put you, not 100% of the time, but quite often put you in a situation where your life is now just laying in bed tired. And I didn't want that. So I did go down the hokey route. The one, oh, that's hokey, Brandy. That can't be real. But I'm here to tell you, I can't cure my disease, obviously. But put down all of the devices, your phone, your computer, the earbuds, everything. Drop it. I go outside with none of it. I spend at least an hour outside with none of it every single day. And just allow myself to be in nature. Be with myself. Maybe I'm doing a little light run for myself because I feel well and I can get out and run. Maybe I'm walking the dogs. Maybe I'm just sitting in the grass. Maybe I've taken my shoes off and I'm, allowing myself to just be with myself, connect, relax, breathe. That's the other thing I do, breathing exercises. Everybody says breathing exercises. Sure, Brandy, I'm sure that helps your nervous system. No, it did, yeah. And look
That
at me. I
that
have a
that is real.
podcast.
What you're
I'm out
sharing
running.
is real important because that's a part of what I would say you're reconnecting
Yep.
with yourself. And the thing when you shared about the medication, which is really crucial, that everyone needs to understand. When taking medication, you need to understand that you are ingesting a foreign substance. So when you're ingesting a foreign substance into the body, message goes to the brain. Something foreign is entering. And so the brain is automatically going to send what's known as your defense mechanism, your body's protect. And so the defense mechanisms inside your body is going to start fighting it because we don't know who you are. We don't know what you are. So now you got another problem because you got your body's defense system fighting off the medication that's been prescribed to you for whatever the illness is. So what have you done? Inside your body, you have created trauma. Now you have a real serious problem because one is going to win out because it's a war. It's a battle between the two. If it breaks down your defense system, it's going to enter your body, which it is a foreign substance, and it's trying to find where it's supposed to go because it's not connected with the nerve endings in the brain to say, okay, this is safe, go here and do this.
And what's
You have to
interesting is,
understand all of that.
yeah. And of course, I'm not going to pretend that we don't need medication.
Exactly.
Of course we do. We live so long today thanks to modern medicine. That's why we get to live long. That's why we survive things that would have killed us 50 years ago. And when I have an infection, you better believe I go up to the doctor to be checked, get those tests, and take that antibiotic. But also, every medication out there has some sort of side effect. So
Right.
if you don't absolutely need it, it is important to ask questions. And it's important to ask questions no matter what. I think we're in a society where people think, well, if the doctor said it, it must be good. And that's not necessarily true. Ask about the side effects. Is that a side effect you're willing to live with? I think often we hear, well, it's rare. Don't worry. Don't worry. Well, what if I'm one of those rare people? Because that very much happened to me. And oh, by the way, they kept telling me it was rare, but there are NIH articles that say that as many as 30% of patients who take this medication have my reaction. And neurologists know this kind of stuff so well. That's why they keep telling you get off the meds you don't need to be on. So, I know that's very difficult to both support medication and also be suspicious of it. But I think the overall idea that I really want to get across to people is not everything needs a pill. Not everything needs a pill.
What you're sharing, and I think to add to that, it goes back to the example I gave about the automobile
Yep.
and its operation. Because, see, one of the problems that we have, we give away too much of our power. And you've got to see your practitioner is not the one who has all the answers.
Mm-hmm.
Your practitioner, you have to see your practitioner as being the consultant who's helping you and assisting you mainly in the healing process.
Mm-hmm.
Because one of the things that allopathic medicine is excellent about is diagnosis,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not good at treatment. It knows how to do the diagnosis, but it does not know how to put a treatment plan.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I say that is because there is no one modality, there's no one health practice that can heal the body. There are 11 systems in the body, and all
Mm-hmm.
of those systems require something different from each other. That's what makes them systems, because
Mm-hmm.
they have a specific operation that they are to do. So what I'm saying is, if you are going to your doctor and you get a diagnosis, what you need to do is, when you get a diagnosis, the first thing you need to think about is, what system in my body is affected because of this diagnosis. For
Mm-hmm.
example, you get a diagnosis that you have asthma. So the first thing you're going to think about is, what system of the body would I find asthma? And so normally you would think about the lungs, the
Mm-hmm.
respiratory system. So then you look at, what is it I need to do? Do my lungs need to be cleansed? Do my lungs need to be strengthened? I need to look at all of those avenues as a part of putting my treatment plan together. So
Mm-hmm.
that way, now we can look at what it is I need to do to get back to the point
Yep.
of being well. And that's you taking full control of your body, mind, and spirit
Yep.
as it relates to healing. Because the bottom line is, when you go to a doctor, you want to be able to heal.
Yep.
And to heal, you need the assistance of everything that's available that works in a line with how the body heals itself. Because as a practitioner, I see myself as assisting the body in the
Mm-hmm.
healing process. I'm not the healer. I'm assisting the body, because to heal belongs to you. And it's when you connect with your
Mm-hmm.
practitioner and become in oneness, now we got a healing process that will do what I call put the heel back in healthy.
I like that. Yeah. It's so important. And when you look at it from a holistic perspective, instead of just kind of hitting these symptoms where they are at,
Mm-hmm.
you do get to a more healthy body, you get to a better place.
Mm-hmm.
And, I love talking about these things because while I still have a lot of issues, my health, there's no cure. I'm hoping there will be one. I watched the documentary, My Last Nerve. I'm super hopped up on optimism. But, you know, for what I have, you can go to any Facebook support group or other, online social media support group for these various diseases, and there's a lot of people on. They'll list out their 10, 12 medications they're on. They're unable to work. They're unable to do anything. They can't walk. All these things. And you so often set your mind to, well, that's the expectation. That's my life now. I can't work. I can't move. I can't do these things. And people say to me all the time, well, you must, your disease must be, very new, or, it's not very advanced, or maybe they misdiagnosed you because you can move, you've got a podcast, you've got a consulting business, you're still running. And I always say, you know what? I'm none of those things I'm doing at the same kind of level I was 20 years ago, but I'm doing them. And a lot of it has to do with looking at everything holistically, just like you said. And that's why I'm such a proponent of it.
The other thing that's real important that you said, you can become a victim of your defined illness,
Oh, yes.
or you can become a victor of
That's
your
right.
illness.
Ooh, that's a good way of putting it.
And
It's a
so,
really good way
see,
of putting it.
you have to look at that. And what you're doing is you're saying, I'm going to be a victor
Yes.
of my illness, because what am I doing? I have connected the mind, body,
Yeah.
stress, pain connection. And by understanding that, that means I take back control. I'm not going to let this pain take me out. I'm not going to let this particular illness take me down. What I am going to do is I am going to work through it. And the way you work through it is, that goes back to that reconnecting with yourself.
Yeah.
Nothing outside of you should have any more power over you than what you give it. And that's the mind body connection.
Your mind is so strong.
When we disconnect ourselves, when we disconnect our body from our mind, we empower the very thing that's going to take us down, and that's how we become a victim. And to be a victim is what cripples you, so that
Yes.
you do not succeed to start doing the very things that you were created to do. So
Yes.
what you're doing, you're staying connected to your creativeness, and your creativeness is what's healing you. And that's what we have to understand. What's inside of us comes out, and when it comes out, it gives us the wellness that we need. And I tie that back into, we talk about the DNA. All of us have DNAs with some kind of limitation to it.
Yes.
We all have it. For me, for example, I have the DNA for hypertension. Because I have it, the one thing I know is, if I don't want it to act up and cause serious problems for me, I can't feed it certain things, because it's about the food. If I feed and eat on certain things, it's going to increase and cause me to be into a hypertensive situation.
Absolutely.
And I share this as an example because when I was in my 20s and all the way through my childhood, I suffered with migraine headaches. And I never took medication for migraines. What I would do is I'd go in a dark room and just lay down and let it pass over. One day, I was working and going to school at the same time. But in that particular situation, I came home. I was working a night job, so when I got home, I was eating late. So I ate a meal, and all of a sudden, I had extreme headache. And so because I was used to it, I just bared, because I had high pain tolerance. The headache lasted for 3 days. And my family said, and I'm still working and studying and all that stuff, said, you need to go to the doctor. When I went to the doctor said, you made it in just the nick of time. You're on the verge of a stroke.
Oh, gosh.
At that particular time, the doctor gave me a prescription for hypertension. I got home, I looked at that prescription. I said, I'm not taking this, because the members in my family had hypertension and were on this medication that you're on for life. And I said, this was not going to happen to me. I'm not going to be on this medication for life. So then I started immediately I became my research piece in terms of how to turn that around. And
Mm-hmm.
in the process, I changed my diet and all of that. But I created another problem called anemia. I became a severe anemic.
Mm-hmm.
And because I gave up meat. I just dropped eating meat.
Right.
And
Yeah.
meat gives fire and fuel to the system. So
It
I
does.
had
Yeah.
cut out the fueling for the body. But I say that to say that's not the way I would advise anybody to do it. But I had to take that route because of the genetics. We were all eating the same way, so that's why everybody had hypertension. So I had to say, I'm not going to let this happen to me this way. So you have to look at in terms of what are your genetic weaknesses and know what you
Or what are
need to
your
do to
habits
strengthen it.
too? You know, some people do have genetics that lead, we hear a lot about the various genetics people you can get, where, their whole family's had breast cancer. Now they're,
Yes.
trying to take preventative measures. You hear a lot about people talking about, various autoimmune diseases. Now
Yes.
you're hearing more and more about what is genetic, what is passed down. But there's also things that we just self inflict. And if you
Exactly.
eat high sugar, high fat,
Yes.
all these things, then it is going to lead to.
Yes.
And of course, we're not medical doctors and there's so many different variations. And I always say to people, I understand we all have something a little different. And I never want to be the one that comes up to somebody to say something ridiculous like, well, have you tried turmeric? Because everybody
Yes.
who's sick knows you want to kill that person. And rightfully so. Uh, but we can adjust how we feel within our own illnesses or adjust our
Exactly.
outcomes based on
Perfectly.
what we eat and how we take care of our body. And I mean, if somebody would hand me a magic wand and allow me to, make a big change in our healthcare system, the first thing I would do is I would make you, instead of just having a primary care doctor, I would give everybody a primary care team that includes a nutritionist
There
and
you
some
go.
sort of exercise scientist, whether it's a PhD, exercise science person, a personal trainer, a physical therapist. I love physical therapists. They're my favorite people in the world. When you have those three people in a team, a medical doctor, or a nurse practitioner, what any other kind of health profession, medical health professional like that, plus a nutritionist, plus an exercise expert, you've got a whole different life going. And when you're talking about maintaining your body and using these things, it does affect your outcomes. And that's why I love to use examples. A lot of people with my disease can't walk at all. And everybody says, well, how are you walking? Well, I have this whole team and I try to look at things holistically. I do maintain a very low sugar, low gluten. I'm almost gluten free entirely. I'm almost entirely grain free as well. Just all these different things that can cause inflammation. I just eliminate them from the body. We don't need to make things worse. Do no harm. Get rid of it. The alcohol, all the, this and that. I've eliminated a lot of things or reduced them severely in my diet because it does make a difference. I see a massage therapist who also does reflexology. And these things are very important because when you're doing these various things, getting outside, ditch the, electronics, become one with yourself, reconnect, think, breathe, breathing exercises, 10 minutes a day. Start with 1 minute a day. It's amazing the difference it makes. It's not hokey. It's
What
not. Breathe,
what you
turn off the
just
computer.
the, what's real key that you just shared is team. That's why
Hmm.
it's important to the one of the problems with allopathic medicine is the fact that they don't understand integration. Integrative
Hmm.
approaches in terms of when you're working with a patient. And I say that because when I work with my clients, the thing that I find missing in allopathic is one real key thing. When a person decides to go to a doctor, they're going to a doctor for one thing. They've come to you because they're in pain. And
Hmm.
what they see the doctor is supposed to be, I see the doctor as the one person who
Hmm.
relieves pain. So I'm going to them thinking that I'm going to get my pain relieved. But when you think about it, what happens is you go into the doctor's office, the first thing the doctor's going to do, examines you, then he's going to say, well, we need to take some tests to find out what's going on. So you go in there, you got a backache and you know it's unbearable, and you say my back is aching. So the doctor said, well, before we can find out what it is, we now have to take some tests. But in the meantime, here's a prescription for your back pain. Now, the missing piece to that is when we, as practitioners, we do what we call provide a service. And we
Mm-hmm.
don't think of the business side. We also are in business with a service. So, which means that when you go to the store and you want to buy something, you know exactly what it is you want to buy when you go to the store and you buy
Mm-hmm.
it. The same thing applies when you go to your doctor. You're going to the doctor because the one thing you want is relief from pain. And the missing piece that the doctor misses out on, and it's not his fault because that's the way the
It's just the
system
way
is
our
set up,
healthcare system is structured right
it
now.
is to be able to listen. When my clients come to me, the first thing I'm going to do is listen.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I bring in what my whole focus is, using the power of touch because we
Mm-hmm.
all have it. And my
Mm-hmm.
first touch point is to listen. So
Mm-hmm.
as I'm listening, I'm the my patient clients is telling me all everything related to the pain they're having. And what comes from that for me is I see the stress pain connection that is the contributor
Mm-hmm.
to the pain you are in right now. Because what we don't understand is that whatever is going on outside of our body and we react to it and bring it in, we start internalizing it. And when we internalize it, we now cause what is now known as illnesses and disease. So, which means they always say 95% of all health problems is a result of stress. It's the stress outside that you bring in. So when we focus on the stress factor, I found that out. Now I can go to the next step, which is step number 2, relieving the pain using reflexology
Mm-hmm.
as the first line of pain relief. After that, which is what you shared, now we look at all of the integrative modalities that can
Mm-hmm.
address where we're now focusing on what is the cause of the pain.
Yep.
Because the pain in that area, it may be the back, but that's not where the problem is.
It's almost always your core.
It's someplace else in
Yeah.
the body, and that's where your integrative therapy approach comes in. Because, like you said, you may need exercise. You may need to look at your nutrition. You
Mm-hmm.
may need to look at breathing. You may need to look at, am I doing enough water? It's a whole combination where you're looking at the fire, the air, the water, those
Mm-hmm.
elements as they connect with the body. Is something missing? Is something depleted? That's where integrated a team comes into place because there's no one modality that
That's
can
right.
do it all. They all have to work collectively and cooperatively together as one.
That's the most important thing to remember. I mean, you and I can't fix the healthcare system sitting here today, but we can keep talking about what we need to be doing because it is important. Right now, if you have a GI issue, you go to the GI looks at that, says, "Oh, I don't know," and then you just have to figure out where to go next. The proof is in the pudding, or in this case, the podcast host. The proof is in the podcast host. I had all the issues: bladder, GI, breathing, heart, head. Turns out it was my nervous system. So if we looked at me holistically, we knew that. But if I just went to my GI doctor, which I did, and for good reason, when you have symptoms like I did, that can be a cancer of the colon. So go to the doctor. That is your first, that is important. But when she didn't see a cancer, then the next step is, well, we need to look at everything. And it did take a long time before we got to that place because we just don't have, we go to see individual specialists instead of bringing together that team. And the team is
Exactly.
what we need. The team is
Exactly.
what we need. Yeah.
And that I see is going to be the future of
I hope
healthcare.
so.
because of the fact that specialization is not necessarily important today as it was yesterday.
Right.
It's important now as it relates to diagnosing, getting to if getting to what exactly is going on in that area if that's my specialty. But it does not necessarily mean that I have the treatment for it. I
Right.
can diagnose it and advise on what we need to be doing as it relates to the health issue.
And of course, I always say to people, go to the doctor, make sure it's not something worse. We can't,
Exactly.
I can't fix lupus just with diet. I can't fix, cancer. You need to know if you have cancer. There's so many things that we need to see the medical doctor for. But also ask questions, challenge assumptions. Oh, I need to
That's
take this
crucial.
medication. Hold
That's
on. Do
crucial.
I, or is there something else I can be doing? Can I start with my diet and see about that? Can I talk to a nutritionist? Can I look at exercise? Can I look at a holistic healing kind of an option? I think those are very important, especially somebody who had a very severe reaction to a medication. Ask the questions. Okay, you say it's rare, but what if it happens to me? What do I lose?
That's very important. And make sure that your practitioner knows about the medication that they are
Oh,
prescribing to
and they
you.
have, you know what?
That's a
So
whole
often they
nother
don't.
issue.
And they'll say they do. I mean, and that is a structural problem that's going to take years to fix. We can't fix it overnight. The FDA doesn't have a well put together, adverse reaction database. We don't know all the reactions of drugs when they're released. I'm the lone person in the world who's like, Ozempic, oh my God, I can't believe all you people are taking this because we don't know. I mean, we're already starting to see some of the side effects. There are people who will now have diarrhea every day for the rest of their lives. There are people who ended up with gastroparesis. But we still do not know all of the effects. Humira, the drug I had a reaction to, did not get its black box warning for a number of years after it was approved by the FDA. So, I just don't know how many different ways to say it. It may seem like the drug, whatever it is an easy fix to something, but often it isn't. And you really do need to ask those questions. Do I really need this particular drug? Or is this something I can do slowly, like you talked about, methodically, with real focus and attention, mindfulness? What can I do? What else can I do? You know, it's
And
so
you know,
important to ask those questions.
another key thing is, and you are an example of this in terms of what you're doing. Another key thing is, you can't spend so much time focusing on your diagnosis.
Yeah.
You have to be able to see your body in a whole nother way. See yourself as healthy. See
Mm-hmm.
yourself as well. See yourself pain free. I mean, that's another part of taking control where you're looking at what you have inside of you and making that manifesting and bringing that out of you so you can make it real. That's crucial.
Yeah.
And if you don't, that's how you stay in the victim mode. And for whatever reason, being a victim will never, ever bring you back to being healthy and
No.
well
And you know
again.
what? I'll never be the person I was. And I had to learn how to understand that. I'll never be doing triathlons or Ironmans again. But you know what? I've allowed myself accommodations. It's a very important word. We have to accommodate what we have, what we're going through. And I still get out there and I do nice short runs, easy, they're slow. I stop and walk a lot. Some days I
Yes.
can only walk. If that's all I can do that day, that's fine. I'm going to get out. I'm going to try. Sometimes I allow myself to give up too because I'm human and I cry and I have really difficult days where I just think, oh my gosh, I can't believe this has happened to me. This is so overwhelming. I've lost my entire life as I once knew it. And I give myself that grace. But then when you're done, you've got to find that way to say, okay, but this is the new me. I've got to find a way to stand up. Let's start. Which foot goes out first? And
Exactly.
this is how you do it. You allow yourself the accommodations. You talk to an experienced practitioner such as yourself. You try to look at things holistically. You you just find the way, and it's okay
Exactly.
that you don't look the way you used to. That's fine. That's fine. It's not easy to deal with. I'm not saying that's going to be fine to you tomorrow, but you do. You find a way. And
Exactly.
I'm on that journey every day myself. I'm on that journey. And one of the great things people can do, and I just love what you do so much. Of course, you have your website, focusonhealing.com. You also have a book, Reflexology Today, A Family Affair.
Yes.
Great book, great read. Get it. If you've just been diagnosed, if you've been diagnosed for 20 years, get the book, read. It's really important. And I think these are the things that help us with that mindset too. And how are we going to take on this challenge that is our health issue, whatever it is today? Or maybe you're just wanting that preventative care. Maybe you're perfectly healthy and you're listening to this because you have family members who are going through this or somebody
And
else
that
you
was one
love.
of the reasons, why I wrote the book, Reflexology Today, A Family Affair. And it's like your self help guide to
Hmm.
relieving pain. And when I wrote the book specifically because I felt that at least one member in a household should know how to do some basic reflexology techniques as a pain relief. And it's also about bringing the family together in the healing process using the power of touch. Because all of us have the power of touch in our hands that we
Hmm.
don't utilize. And if we started utilizing the power of touch that we have inside of us through our hands, it can be the first step to prevention and wellness. And that's what it's really all
Yep.
about.
It really is. It really is. And everybody who has a chronic illness knows that the family support system, your friends, whatever that support system looks like for you, it's the most important thing in your life. There's nothing more important than your support system.
Exactly.
And, having these kinds of tools that can be shared among your support system is it's really one of the key elements of getting to that better side of
Exactly.
learning to live with your chronic illness.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for coming on. Again, I just love this conversation. I love what you do. I think this is so important to just keep talking about. We got to keep talking about it so that we can start to see that change that we need to see. So, everybody who's interested, Reflexology Today, A Family Affair, you can buy the book. Go to her website. It is focusonhealing.com. You can also follow her on Instagram, Evolving Butterfly. Thank you so much for coming on. I really love
And
this.
before I leave, I want to say thank you. But there is a African tradition. It's
Oh,
a
yes.
culture. And what it is when you visit someone's home for the first time, you bring a gift. And I
Oh,
have a gift for you and
oh,
your listening audience. They can go to touchology reflexology.com, and my gift is the gift is medication free, medication addiction free pain and stress relief poster that
oh.
your listeners can download as my gift for being your guest today. And I thank you for having me.
Well,
And
thank you
that's at
so much.
touchology reflexology.com.
Oh, gosh. Thank you so, so much. So wonderful. Have to have you back on again. This is something I could talk about every day, I feel like, for years. So thank you. Thank you, everybody, for listening to Living Chronic. And don't forget to follow us on all of the socials, subscribe. See us next time.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Living Chronic. If you could please take a moment to rate and review and share this podcast, this is the best way to help this platform grow and create a community. In the meantime, you can follow along all the social platforms with the handle at Brandy Schantz on Blue Sky and X, and Chronically Brandy Schantz on Instagram and Threads. Don't forget to check out my website, brandyschantz.com. Have an amazing week and see you next time.